Welcome back to the culture, the hottest broadcast in the game. Go to my playlist section. We have already released almost 50 episodes and we have an entire playlist dedicated to this series. In this series, we shine a light on who's really committing some of the most heinous crimes here in the United States and across the world. This project was inspired by years of me listening to certain conservative voices in the media focus on crime in the black community as if crime was unique to us. So that pushed me to dig deeper into the true crime data, the headlines and the statistics to see where the true criminality is actually coming from. Everything I'm discussing is based on publicly reported cases and verified information. This content is for educational and commentary purposes only. And if you come across a story that you believe deserves to be showcased on the culture, send it to my email at kingnefakari@gmail.com. Now, let's get into today's episode. Now, before we get started, I want to start out today's episode talking about white collar crime. You know, that's another arena of crime that a certain demographic just seems to dominate on a whole nother level. And of course, when we talk about white collar crime, we're talking about things like embezzlement, corruption, Ponzi schemes, fraud, insider trading, etc., etc. But of course, you know, this demographic would have you believe that it's everybody else engaged in criminal activity, you know, but never them, right? Never us, right? It's always somebody else. Even right now, Trump talking about the Somalis scamming, the Somalis running off committing fraud, right? So today, let's talk about it, right? Anyway, so like I mentioned in my last video, just in the past month, Trump actually released his mans from prison. And guess what he went to prison for? Guess what he got convicted for? Committing fraud. Yeah. Let's talk about this one. President Trump releases a fraudster executive just days into his prison sentence. David Gentile, that's a suspect, who scammed thousands of hardworking everyday people, has served less than 2 weeks of a 7-year prison sentence. President Trump has commuted the sentence of a former investment manager, David Gentile, who was just days into a 7-year sentence for fraud. The Bureau of Prisons records show that the suspect, Gentile, was released on Wednesday, less than 2 weeks after he reported to prison. Man, he came through, you know, said what up to the prisoners. He said, I'm gone. Now, I'm not familiar with whatever connection that he had to Trump, but I do know that his company, well, the company that he was using to commit fraud, I do know that it was based in New York. So we know that, you know, Trump born and raised in New York, you know, this guy getting money in New York. I don't know. Maybe that might be that might be his boy from back in the day. You know, listen, got to let my mans out of jail, right? Maybe that's what it was because I don't know the connection, right? You come to jail for 2 weeks, the president let you out immediately. That's crazy. That got to be his mans from back in the day. And you know what's crazy? It was him and the co-defendant. And the co-defendant has to serve the whole sentence. But Trump let his mans out of jail. And the very next week, Trump was on a microphone talking about the Somali scamming. I'm telling you, when it comes to any crime, they're always going to redirect the focus onto somebody else. It's almost like a reflex, right? The same exact criminality they're engaged in, right? They're going to be pointing the finger at somebody else. They're going to be pointing the attention towards somebody else's community. But they never want to talk about what is happening inside their own communities. Anyway, let's continue. David Gentile was convicted in August last year of securities and wire fraud charges and sentenced in May. His co-defendant, Jeffrey Schneider, was sentenced to 6 years on the same charges and is due to report in prison in January. So, like I said, his co-defendant got to serve the whole sentence, but Trump let his mans out, right? Trump let his mans out of jail last week, pointing the finger at Somalis the next week. Anyway, let's continue. So far into his second term, President Trump has pardoned or commuted the sentences of multiple people convicted of different types of fraud, including wire fraud, securities, tax, and healthcare fraud. So Trump letting all his people out of jail, man, running off with the bag, running off with the money, right? Running off with people's money. Last month, he pardoned Tennessee State House Speaker Glenn Quesada, who was convicted of fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Damn. Take a look up on the screen. That's a fact. Just last month, November 2025, President Trump pardons the former Tennessee House Speaker Glenn Quesada, who was convicted of corruption. Man, Trump got all the fraudsters and the flexes and finesses in his entourage, man. Trump got all the dudes getting money under the table in his entourage. Well, you know he's from New York, you know. Listen, when you grew up in New York, listen, there's a whole entire subculture. Well, I don't know if it was the same when Trump was coming up. Maybe it was, but, you know, when I was coming up, it was the whole, you know, running up in Chase Bank and running up in different banks and, oh, what's your credit card number? I could help you flip this 500 to 5,000. You know, how the hell you 17 years old, bro, and you pulling up in the goddamn 7 Series? Like, what is going on, bro? How you getting all this money, bro? How did you rent out the Lamborghini for your birthday, right? So in New York, you see all type of, you know, dudes, you know, doing magic tricks with the money. So I guess, Trump, being from New York, he got the flexes and finesses in his entourage, but at the same time, he wants to redirect the focus onto somebody else. He wants to redirect the attention onto somebody else, which is typical of his demographic. They always want to deflect and redirect the attention and redirect the focus. But, thankfully, we have this illustrious broadcast called The Culture. And on this broadcast, we take the magnifying glass and we put all the attention on all the debauchery and the depravity taking place and all the corruption and all the fraudulent behavior and all the economic crimes and all type of different crimes. We put all the attention directly on it, and we expose to the world all the crime and all the debauchery taking place inside your community. Now, before we continue, I want to talk about, numbers and stats, because these guys love stats. They got to keep their stats, right? White males are overrepresented in white collar crime statistics, with some sources indicating they make up as much as 75 to 85% of white collar offenders. White males are also more likely to commit bribery, counterfeiting, and property crimes. Now, welcome to the culture, man. Welcome to the culture. Now, let's continue, man. Let's get into the next story. A real estate developer has been arrested on charges of defrauding hundreds of investors. Let's get into this one. In California, federal prosecutors have unsealed a major case against 63-year-old real estate executive Kenneth Matson, accusing him of running a decade-long Ponzi scheme disguised as safe real estate investments. Matson was the president of Lefevre Matson, a company that controlled multiple apartment complex partnerships. And for more than 10 years, he allegedly convinced hundreds of mostly retired or near-retired investors to hand over millions of dollars, promising them legitimate ownership stakes in real property. But according to the indictment, everything was a lie. The prosecutor said the suspect, Matson, created a whole class of what he called off-the-books investors, people who thought they were buying into real partnerships when in reality they never owned anything. The partnerships themselves existed, but their names were never on the books. Instead of receiving actual returns from rent or property income, many investors were unknowingly being paid with money from newer investors in classic Ponzi scheme fashion, hiding behind the respectable face of actual real estate. The scheme stretched across multiple properties. Prosecutors say that the suspect even hid an $8 million sale of one of the complexes, never told the investors, and kept recruiting new victims as if nothing had happened. By 2024, he allegedly pulled in at least $28 million from the off-book deals alone. And when the SEC finally started investigating, according to the indictment, Matson responded by deleting thousands of documents, even after being ordered to preserve the evidence, moving the case from simple fraud into money laundering and obstruction of justice. He was arrested and now faces multiple federal charges, 7 counts of wire fraud, money laundering, and obstruction. Each fraud count carries up to 20 years in prison if convicted. Federal agents from the FBI, the IRS, and the Postal Inspection Service says this kind of scheme hits the hardest at those in old age and retirees who cannot afford to lose their life savings. Prosecutors describe this case as a long-running, carefully maintained hustle, where a man that people trusted with their retirement turned their savings into a personal slush fund. Now, welcome to the culture, man. Welcome to the culture. That arena of crime, man, that's a whole different sector of crime that we could just go down a rabbit hole when it comes to that. But anyway, let's get into the next story. A ShopRite employee ignited a blaze inside a packed NYC supermarket just days before Thanksgiving. Now, welcome to the culture, where we burn down buildings for no reason, right? Remember when we first started the culture, it was so many arson cases, dudes burning down their girlfriend's house, all type of craziness, man. And as you can see, man, anyway, let's get into the story. A 21-year-old Staten Island ShopRite employee was arrested for allegedly starting a raging fire that caused over $100,000 in damages inside a supermarket the day before Thanksgiving, according to the authorities. The suspect, Dominic Sacchetti, was cuffed on Wednesday for setting off a blaze inside a bustling grocery store where many shoppers were preparing for their Thanksgiving dinner. Now, take a look up on the screen. As you can see, just the calamity taking place inside the community, right? We have these individuals still living out their childhood. This is something you would expect from somebody, a little kid in elementary school, accidentally start a fire, but he actually purposely started the fire. And that actually reminded me, you remember that major Palisades fire that we covered, way back in the early days of the culture, one of the worst fires in American history, right? The Palisades fire, a highly destructive wildfire that began in Santa Monica Mountains of Los Angeles County on January 2025 and grew to destroy large areas of the Pacific Palisades, Topanga, and Malibu before it was contained on January 31st, killing 12 people, destroying over 6,000 structures, and making it the 10th deadliest and the 3rd most destructive California wildfire on record, and the most destructive to occur in the history of the city of Los Angeles. And as you can see, this is the suspect, and that happened earlier this year, right? He was arrested earlier this year. So, as you can see, man, welcome to the culture. Welcome to the culture. Anyways, next story. December 4th, today, a man chases his stepmother outside their house and stabs her 7 times and eliminates her. A California man has been sentenced to decades in prison after a brutal attack that left his stepmother dead and seriously injured his own father. 34-year-old Justin Buchanan will serve 30 years to life for the elimination of Kelly Jean Buchanan, and also for assaulting a neighbor that tried to intervene. The violence unfolded inside the family's home in the small town of Shandon. Investigators said that an argument broke out between the suspect and the victims. Security footage captured the chilling moments that followed. The suspect chased his stepmother through the house, tackled her, and then stabbed her repeatedly as she screamed for help. The prosecutor said she was stabbed at least 7 times. A neighbor who witnessed the attack rushed over to help. The suspect then turned on him as well, forcing the neighbor to defend himself with whatever objects he could find. During the chaos, the suspect also stabbed his own father. Time out, man. Time out, bro. Time out. Like I said, man, when it comes to this community, the elders get no respect. You see, in the black community, say what you want. Say whatever you want about whatever black community, whatever black culture around the world. We respect our elders, man. You know, when the elder come in the room, you know, you gotta be quiet. You know, when the elder say something, you gotta take heed. You gotta listen, right? You can't raise your voice at the elder. You can't raise your hand towards the elder, right? But in this community, we tackling the elders, we stabbing the elders, we smacking the elders, we yelling at the elders, we cursing at the elders. I don't understand this community, don't understand this culture. Let's continue. During his testimony, the father said that during the attack, his son's expression changed so drastically that he believed that his son looked possessed, saying that his eyes turned completely black. Listen, man, listen, I'm not familiar with this culture, right? I have nothing to say. I'm speechless, right? I'm speechless. What a way to start out the culture, bro. What a way to start out the culture, man. Anyway, let's continue. Next story. December 3rd, yesterday. A biological mother and a stepfather accused of eliminating, torturing, and removing a baby from a victim. Let's get into it. Authorities in Michigan say that a mother and a stepfather carried out one of the most disturbing crimes the region has seen in years. Suspects Courtney Bartholomew and her husband, Brad Bartholomew, have been charged with 8 counts each in the death of 22-year-old Rebecca Park, her own daughter. The victim was 38 weeks pregnant and just days away from giving birth when she vanished without a trace. Her body was finally discovered weeks later along a remote hiking trail in the Michigan woods. Prosecutors say that what investigators uncovered explained why the case had been so tightly guarded. Rebecca's baby was removed from her body, and the child has never been found. In the courtroom, the prosecutors laid out the allegations. They said the suspects planned the crime, researched it, and carried it out with precision. According to investigators, Brad lured the victim to their home, forced her into another vehicle, and they drove her into the woods. There, prosecutors say that the couple attacked her, forced her to the ground, and caused the deaths of both the victim and her unborn child. Also, as the investigation was unfolding, the victim's fiance, 43-year-old Richard Fowler, was arrested on multiple drug-related charges for methamphetamine shortly after the victim's body was found. Now, goddamn, welcome to the culture, bro. Welcome to the culture. Cutting the baby out of the body, killing the mother and the child. Man, listen, you would think, man, that's the type of barbarity they were doing on the plantation, bro. You know, back in the day. Welcome to the culture, bro. Welcome to the culture. Crazy. Anyway, next story. December 4th, today, a nurse mother refused to give medical attention to her baby as her health failed and claims that she feels no guilt. Man, welcome to the culture, bro. Damn, let's continue. Wow, let's get into it. Authorities out in Utah say that an 18-month-old girl endured conditions that were so neglectful and isolating that investigators described her final days as nothing short of prison. The suspects, Carrie and Mitchell Murray, both 31 years old, were arrested 9 months after the death of their daughter, Ruby Murray, who investigators say wasted away inside a crib while her parents lived life around her. When the baby died, the mother, who is a registered nurse, called 911 and immediately declared the child beyond help, refusing to attempt any life-saving measures. But once detectives arrived and reviewed what was happening inside the home, they said the truth was far worse than a sudden medical event. The baby spent almost her entire life inside a crib, literally. According to investigators, both the parents admitted that Ruby spent most of her days confined inside a crib while they dropped in every now and again occasionally to leave food or water. Her room was kept at a noticeably higher temperature than the rest of the house, and the crib itself was described as filthy, scattered with old food and trash and multiple sippy cups. And over the 4 days that led up to the death, the baby monitor video showed that Ruby was outside her crib for only 6 hours, and only in the presence of another human being for just 50 minutes. There was one day that passed where she never came out the crib at all. Her diaper was not changed once on the day before she died, and only changed 6 times in a total of 4 days. The medical examiner determined that the baby died from dehydration and severe malnutrition. At 18 months old, she weighed just over 17 pounds. The mother's statements stunned the investigators. She told the investigators that she felt no guilt, suggesting that it was simply her time, and tried to frame the death as unexplainable, even mentioning certain illnesses that were far outside the typical age range for the child. Investigators say that the baby had been subjected to heat, isolation, darkness, sleep disruption, and neglect so extreme that her death was inevitable under the condition that she lived in. Now, as we can see, calamity and destruction and chaos happening inside the white community. Now, that story was a little bit heavy. That was a bit heavy. So, let's take a little break, man. Let's lighten up the mood. Let's lighten up the spirit while we're looking at the calamity taking place inside the white community. Let's take a look at the black man protecting and serving and keeping the community safe and cracking jokes at the same time. Run the clip. I'll be right back.
Oh God, yo, my son here mad because I probably talked to his girl before.
Never that.
Yo.
My girl don't like people that take the train.
Oh yeah.
Let's start there. And what you got on them feet? Oh Lord.
Word. This your car? This your car? This your car?
Yes.
You was driving this? You was moving around?
Oh, show your car. Where the subway car? Where the subway car?
The 6.
I want you to post that now.
All right, we back. Next story. December 2nd, the other day, an Ohio man has been charged for crimes against minors in the Caribbean. Man, before we jump into this one, I forgot to play the intro at the beginning of the video. Run the clip. I'll be right back.
If you didn't know already, white men make up 29% of the US population, but are accounted for over 77% of the people caught with child, you know what.
It doesn't matter about the other races. What I see here is white men. Bottom line is, why fight and get more statistics that makes it worse for us? Why not just say, you know what, shit, that's bad. We should probably do something about that as a community of white people.
Saw the white boy walk in, and then like my natural human reaction and instinct was like, shoot her, and everyone was looking at me crazy.
Now let's get into this story. Absolute craziness. Federal prosecutors say that suspect Jariah Mast, a 44-year-old former missionary, spent nearly 2 decades traveling back and forth between the United States and Haiti to engage in illegal activity involving minors and prey on vulnerable boys. The suspect, who already served prison time for committing crimes against minors back in Ohio, is now facing new federal charges accusing him of committing crimes against minors against Haitian children starting back in 2004. Investigators say that the suspect has admitted that he has committed criminal acts against at least 30 boys in Haiti alone, and even more children back in the United States. Homeland Security records show that he took more than 30 flights to Haiti during this period, often under the cover of missionary and charity work. Prosecutors say that pattern using charity work and church work and humanitarian aid is how many offenders gain access to isolated and impoverished children overseas. The authorities say that his actions were not a momentary lapse of judgment, but a long-term pattern of illegal activity across international borders. The suspect's activity fits a well-documented international pattern where Western men deliberately travel to impoverished countries where children are easier to access. And this is why you had nations like the United States, like Germany, like the UK, like France, and many other Western nations. In the United States, they have the law that's called the PROTECT Act, and that allows the United States government to prosecute their own citizens who go overseas to commit crimes against minors, right? In the UK, they have what's called the Sex Offense Act, right? Same exact thing. It allows the government to prosecute those who go overseas to commit crimes against minors, right? And in France, they have their own law, the same exact thing. In Australia, they have their own laws. The reason why they had to put these laws on the books is because like I said, like I always say, these governments, they had to confront the fact that they were becoming internationally known as a source of predatory behavior. They were building a reputation for themselves of being an exporter of predators, right? And of course, this had geopolitical effects, diplomatic effects, because if you claim to be a nation that's about, freedom and liberty and democracy, but your citizens are the international champions of depravity and debauchery and crimes against minors, then of course that creates a contradiction that you have to confront. And of course, when I talk about their citizens, I'm talking about a certain population, a certain segment of the population that, even though they only make up about 29% of the population by themselves, they are overrepresented in just the most terrible arenas of crime, just the most barbaric, the most demonic arenas of crime. They dominate, right? Even this guy, domestically and internationally, in Haiti, at least 30 victims. And they said he had even more back in the United States, right? So nobody's safe, right? These guys terrorizing the children in their own community. So what you think they're going to do when they go into your community, right? If they're already terrorizing the children in their own community, what do you think they're going to do with your own children when you allow them into your own community? Come on now. Anyway, next story, December 3rd, yesterday. A man has been sentenced to prison for having intimate relations with a pregnant pit bull. Let's get into it. A man from Mississippi has been sentenced after prosecutors say that he committed an act of depravity against an animal, a pregnant pit bull by the name of Baby Girl. According to investigators, the suspect, 32-year-old Timothy Sanders, was reported by one of his own family members after they caught him in the middle of the act, holding down the dog and committing criminal acts. The suspect was immediately charged with felony animal cruelty. The pregnant dog was taken away from the home and placed under protection. Now, I'm telling you, man, on the culture, bro, you never know what you're gonna see on the culture. It's always gonna be that one story that's just totally just out of this world, bro. On every single episode too, like every episode, it's always gonna be that one story that's just like, bro, I'm not even familiar with these cultural activities. Like, what is going on, bro? What is happening, bro? And could you believe, you remember when Trump last year, because speaking of Trump, because we talked about Trump earlier in the video, you remember last year, when Trump was on the campaign trail and he was, talking all this lies and propaganda. Oh, the Haitians are going around, stealing your dogs and eating your dogs and cats and things like that. But look what his demographic is really doing with the dogs, though, right? They're eating the pets, but you smashing the pets, though, right? And this is facts, right? Not propaganda, not no lies and fabrication. This is facts, real life. Got caught in the middle of the act, got indicted and sent to prison because you were smashing the pets. They're smashing the dogs. Remember? Trump was like, oh, they're eating the pets. They're eating the dog. No, you're smashing the dog. That's what you're doing, though, bro. You're smashing the dogs. White men is doing that. Yeah. White men is doing that. Right? Yeah. White men is doing that. Yeah. We're going to put it on the whole collective. White men is doing this. We keeping that same energy. Now, anyway, next story. Let's keep it moving, man. December 4th, today, an alleged criminal, Travis Turner, left without any essentials as his family urges him to face charges regarding illegal images and videos involving minors. Now, time out. Now, this suspect apparently, I guess that he knew that the police, the authorities were investigating him. So he abandoned his family, right? He's missing right now. Nobody knows where he is. He abandoned his family, right? I guess he knew that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they was on his bumper. They was on his head. So he left without any essentials, right? No essentials. No keys, no money, no ID. He left his family, bro. Left his family, never came back because he knew the authorities were coming. He knew the search warrant was about to be executed on the residence. Listen, you already know how it goes, man. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they contact the authorities. The authorities gather information. The authorities execute the search warrant on the residence. The authorities confiscate the electronic devices, and then they find thousands of illegal images and videos. So he already knew what time it was. He abandoned his family. He left his house. Listen, no one knows where he's at right now. Let's get into this one. The family of a Virginia high school football coach, Travis Turner, are begging for him to return home, as investigators are currently searching for him amid an ongoing investigation regarding crimes against minors. The suspect is widely regarded as a respected figure in his community, a physical education teacher, a longtime coach, and a leader of an undefeated high school football team that has just reached the regional finals. But according to the authorities, behind that public reputation was a separate criminal investigation. The suspect was last seen on November 20th after walking into the woods with a gun. something that his family says that he had done many times before, but he never returned. When he didn't return, his wife contacted the authorities and filed a missing person report. The family's attorney says that at the time that he disappeared, he was not wanted by the police and no warrants had yet been issued. Those charges came only days later when the Virginia State Police obtained 10 arrest warrants, 5 counts of possessing illegal images and videos involving minors, and using a computer to solicit a minor. Investigators say that they were already on the way to his house when they learned that he vanished. Since then, drones, canine units, and search teams have been deployed across heavily wooded mountainous areas around his home. State police now classify him as a fugitive, though the family insists that there was no attempt to flee and that his wife has been cooperating with the investigators. Man, these dudes be having wives and families and kids, and they be respected members of the community and coaches and teachers. And man, under the cover of darkness, man, the illegal activity involving the minors, going all the way to the Caribbean just for the minors. Man, anyway, let's continue. The case has stunned the community due to the suspect's position as a well-known educator and a coach of an undefeated team. This is somebody who has been trusted around hundreds of young people for years, and it has raised questions about what has been happening behind the scenes. Authorities in the Turner family continue to ask anybody with information to come forward as the search has now entered the 3rd week. So this dude been gone for weeks, left the house with no essentials, no keys. He probably offed himself by now. He probably in the woods dead somewhere. Anyway, because listen, it's just so hard to come back from that. You know what I mean? Imagine you're a well-respected family man in the community, teacher, coach of an undefeated team, the most powerful team in the league, you know, high school coach. Like, come on, dog. How can you face the community after that? How can you face the community after that? Right? When it comes to certain men, when your reputation is gone, there is nothing left to live for. Right? When your reputation has been destroyed, for certain men, there is nothing left to live for. Right? So he probably decided that, man, there's no point in living no more, bro. You know, they're going to find out about me, right? They're going to know the truth. That's the thing. That's the thing with this demographic. Like I always say, they always want to project this image of righteousness and integrity, but it's never the truth. It's never the reality. So they live in constant fear, constant anxiety of being exposed, of being uncovered, of being found out about. So this guy, because he was scared of finally being exposed, all his dirty laundry, his illegal activity coming to the light, man, he decided to make a run for it before the authorities came. Now, next story. December 2nd, the other day, a 73-year-old man has been arrested for trying to purchase a 10-month-old girl at an auction house. Let's get into it, bro. Welcome to the culture. Welcome to the culture. A 73-year-old man in Louisiana is accused of trying to buy a 10-month-old girl. The Washington Parish Sheriff's Office arrested suspect Howell Gene Penton after they say that he solicited a woman at the Angie auction house to purchase her infant daughter. Investigators conducted an undercover operation on Saturday and took the suspect into custody without incident. Next story, December 2nd, the other day, an Uber driver has been arrested for committing criminal acts against an unconscious passenger. Let's get into it. Authorities have arrested a 61-year-old Uber driver by the name of Clifford Parton, accusing him of committing criminal acts against a vulnerable passenger he was supposed to drive home safely. According to the investigators, the victim had left a party and ordered an Uber because she was too intoxicated to drive. The criminal complaint states that shortly after the ride began, the victim lost consciousness, only to wake up in a secluded area of a parking lot, far from her home and far from any legitimate destination. Investigators later confirmed through GPS data and surrounding surveillance footage that the suspect's vehicle was hidden in an isolated area for almost 30 minutes, which reinforced the prosecutor's concerns about how deliberate and predatory the situation had been. The victim told officers she woke up disoriented inside the parked vehicle and demanded to be taken home, and ultimately fled the car on foot once she was close enough to her neighborhood. She later underwent a medical evaluation and contacted law enforcement. Police say the digital evidence matched up with her account, step for step, and with the surveillance and the trip data confirming the unexplained stop in a secluded area. The suspect was charged with first-degree criminal activity against women. Now, next story. Now, if you remember the story of Irina Zarutska, the Ukrainian refugee, the Ukrainian immigrant, I think it happened in South Carolina. Now, this story is the exact same thing. A Ukrainian lady in South Carolina unfortunately was a victim of a crazy crime. Now, how much you want to bet? I'll bet my entire YouTube channel that the conservative media is not going to touch this. I'm going to be the only one talking about it. I bet my whole YouTube channel, I bet my whole life, every dollar in every account, they're not going to touch this story. Let's get into it. Take a look up on the screen. A man accused of kidnapping and attempting to commit illegal acts against a Ukrainian woman in South Carolina, December 4th, today. Let's get into it. A South Carolina man is behind bars after authorities say that he kidnapped the woman at gunpoint and tried to commit illegal acts behind a shopping center. The attack happened in November 29th last week when the victim, a Ukrainian woman, was loading bags into her car with her young daughter at the shopping center. According to police, the suspect approached the victim with a handgun, demanded her belongings, and then forced her inside his vehicle. The authorities say that he drove behind the shopping center, exposed himself, and attempted to force her into illegal acts. The victim refused and fought back, and somehow managed to escape and ran back to her daughter, who flagged down bystanders for help. Officers noted that the victim showed clear signs of trauma when they arrived. Due to the fact that the victim spoke limited English, a Ukrainian-speaking officer was called to take her statement. A detail that resonated heavily in light of other recent crimes targeting Ukrainian women in America, including the killing of Ukrainian immigrant Irina Zarutska earlier this year. The investigators tracked the suspect by using surveillance footage and GPS data from the stolen cell phone, ultimately identifying a vehicle registered to a residence in the area. On December 3rd, the Spartanburg police and Greenville County deputies arrested the man at his home and recovered clothing and items that matched the evidence. The police say the victim's 10-year-old daughter was hiding in the car during the crime, while the suspect tried to force her mother away at gunpoint. Crazy, absolutely insane. Welcome to the culture, bro. Welcome to the culture. Now, as you can see, it's the same person on the screen, by the way. I don't want you to think it is two different people. It's actually the same person. This is the suspect on the screen, right? On the left, that's the clean cut image you present to the world. But on the right, that's the true barbaric nature, the true savage, the true beast, right? Exposed in the public. Now, anyway, let's continue. Next story, December 2nd, the other day. An arrested anesthesiologist charged with illegal images and videos involving minors has decided to take his own life. Let's get into it. A well-respected anesthesiologist has committed suicide just 2 days after being arrested for crimes against minors, choosing to flee accountability instead of face the evidence laid out against him. According to the investigators, 52-year-old Jeffrey Sheeling was arrested on November 25th and found dead on November 27th. Court documents paint a disturbing picture. The suspect became the focus of an internet crimes against children investigation after social media accounts linked to his email were used to set up multiple profiles containing illegal images of minors. Investigators say that the accounts shared photos and videos of young boys starting back in 2024 and even up to 2025. The suspect was also engaging in illegal conversations with other users about committing criminal acts against children. Detectives say that he openly described his attraction to minors, and he even mentioned losing hundreds of illegal images when his digital storage device had crashed. His IP data was subpoenaed, and it confirmed the accounts traced back to his residence. He had been part of the Gallatin Valley Anesthesia Associates and held privileges at a major hospital where background checks showed no prior complaints, and he had zero criminal record. Yet behind the scenes, investigators say that he was involved in some of the most disturbing content imaginable. And rather than face the charges, he has decided to end his own life within 48 hours of being arrested, leaving investigators to conclude that he preferred death over accountability and public exposure. This case is another reminder that some of the most polished and respected individuals in certain communities can be hiding the darkest conduct. And when the truth finally comes out, they prefer to run instead of face accountability like a man.
Feel like a see me, I feel like I'm Saudi or ran up on Yan in the middle of Bamako. Enemy line, they claiming he innocent. Don't do no talking, I gotta move militant. Don't do no talking, I hit him with facts. 1804, bringing it back. 1804 like I'm Mother Cap Henry. King with the vision, the crown never empty. Top of the mountain, my soldiers defend me. Ducking and dodging the foreign intelligence. Hitting my dance on the DGSE. Dodging they traps, still on my feet. Feeling impeccable, feel like I'm shining. Go to my neck and I'm flooded with diamonds. Go to my neck and I feel like a mess. Feel like a lion, I'm in the savannah. Feel like the king when I'm up in the jungle. Never defeated, I never been humble. Come out victorious every encounter. Money machine give me help when I count it. Money machine stack it up in a beat. Heart of a king and I ride for the team. Weight of the world got it stuck on my shoulders. Bet you can feel it, my heart getting colder. Yeah, gotta stay focused so when it's in shots, I gotta react. Cause I'm a target, I'm under attack. Grabbing a weapon, I tell her get back. Mission exposed, secrets unfold. Enemy try, but I'm still in control. Got your boy sitting in Bamako prison. Hoping they wish we sending them home. Enemy know that we good under pressure. Been through the thunderous, turbulent storm. Shorty a diamond, I told her she precious. Hop in a whip and I'm taking her home. Hop in a whip and I'm swerving, I'm smashed. Killing my enemies, one of my passion. Rocking this gold like we in bikini. Feel like the captain, I'm clutching a heater. Yeah, gotta stay focused so when it's in shots, I gotta react. Cause I'm a target, I'm under attack. Grabbing a weapon, I tell her get back. Mission exposed, secrets unfold. Enemy try, but I'm still in control. Got your boy sitting in Bamako prison. Hoping they wish we sending them home. Enemy know that we good under pressure. Been through the thunderous, turbulent storm. Shorty a diamond, I told her she precious. Hop in a whip and I'm taking her home. Hop in a whip and I'm swerving, I'm smashed. Killing my enemies, one of my passion. Rocking this gold like we in bikini. Feel like the captain, I'm clutching a heater.